from the other side of privilege. That blanket of nepotism that envelopes you must be warm. It must be such a snug refuge while you heap scorn on those who have had the misfortune to be caught in the storm. It must be sweet, the assurance that doors will open on your arrival at the mere mention of your connections and family name. But of course you think you are not to blame, even while your actions repeatedly reinforce the idea that you stand above those whom you do not consider the same. Those of less fortunate circumstances you scorn. You think of them as delinquent, treat them like they do not belong. The upper echelons of the society you navigate has the luxury of espousing disingenuities like, you'll get plenty of exposure, or it's not about money, when trying to convince those who have always struggled to give their art away for free. There is a disparity in our islands. The lines of class and ideas of what is or isn't culture are sharply delineated. The hubris-stricken, egotistic beneficiaries of the inequalities that plague us feel justified in making these lines so clear, in that if you are not from the right part of town or family, no matter your natural skill or intelligence, your contributions are devalued in favor of those who hold the connection or bear the name of an icon which you, the self-appointed intelligentsia, hold dear. The self-assurance you are blessed with must be a thrill. It must be so affirming on losing your much-loved elders to look forward to inheriting more than just trauma of grief, unpaid tax, and funeral bills. The name-dropping you engage in is grotesque, as are the lectures to those less fortunate, unlike whom you've never had to fight for your right to receive respect. The audacity of one like you, weighted down with the benefit of never having to knuckle down and prove yourself, because the heaviness of that name you carry speaks so loudly for itself, and that weight pushes open doors firmly locked even against those with far more skill and capacity than you. But why should you be bothered by the misfortune of those who didn't have the good sense to be born to the right people or in the right place as you? The internalized colonialism you are suffused with and wield like a rusty blade hacks away at your flimsy proclamations of benefiting from meritocracy and the very laughable notion that you are self-made. You should not think for a moment that who you truly are is unseen as you preen under the pretense of being an enlightened human being. You know the children of farming and fishing villages have the capacity to excel and be brilliant too, sometimes even more so than the posers and products of nepotism you choose to ascribe these labels to, yet you devalue them out of fear that an illegitimate nobody from nowhere will someday outshine and outclass you. It must be so nice to feel the unearned relevance you do from your paltry, unremarkable efforts. It must be nice to not need to earn a living from the sad attempts at creativity you pursue, while you impose your influence on the fate of the talents who dare to raise their heads, making yourself the arbiter of whether they can succeed in our society, not giving a damn about whether they can eat or afford a place to lay their heads. But your fear that raw talent will make you irrelevant is very well based. Time is passing, everyone ages. Others will come to take your jealously guarded place. And though your privilege has you now well placed, so much so that you have the ability to deny others space, if they do not agree to the conditions you stipulate, agree to never discuss their need, never demand their worth, while you pretend to be capable of altruism and growth. You become indignant that a nobody from nowhere would dare to know and state their worth, outraged that a nobody from nowhere recognizes that exposure alone cannot feed their growth. You dare to lecture that past icons never dwelled on such insignificancies like a fee. You blithely overlook the fact that privilege creates that inconsideration. Warm beds and full bellies create space for that laissez-faire where getting paid for your creative work is not high on your list of considerations. But one would do to remember there is a system of ticketing involved in theater where you pay for the pleasure to be entertained. One would do to remember there is a price on every piece of art, rightfully or wrongfully gained. There is a price on the 9-to-5 to which so many give their efforts over lifetimes. There is a price for the fine things created by the efforts of others which bring us pleasure, to name a few: cigars, brandy, and wine. Those who have spent their lives perfecting and growing the skills you pretend to have are worth so much more than your barely disguised disdain and disregard. The effort they have spent over the years deserve more than to be smothered by your replacement fears. Maybe one day your head will make sufficient emergence from your nether regions to give them the recognition they deserve. Or maybe you just remain bitter, selfish to the end in your privilege that you are unable to similarly blind the world.